Hello, my name is Brandon Brewton. I am the Senior Manager of Academics for the Secondary Curriculum and Instruction Department for Houston Independent School District. Today, I have the honor to come to you and teach you all a lesson over checks and balances. This lesson can be found in our HIZ Master Course Lessons for Secondary Social Studies Curriculum and Development, and it is in Unit 5, Part 1, Lesson 2C. It's vertically aligned, so there's relevance in this lesson for all grade levels. So let's dive in. All right, so let's dive into our lesson for today. It's checks and balances. So let's first take a look at our learning targets for this lesson. So the first learning target is I can analyze how the U.S. Constitution reflects the principle of checks and balances. The second, I can explain how checks and balances work in real life scenarios. So what do you need for this lesson? Very simple. You need a pen or pencil and paper. So let's start by checking yourself. So I want you to think of all the times that you were checked in your day-to-day life. You have 2 minutes to think of as many examples as possible. And as you think of them, write them down on a sheet of scratch paper. And I will let you know when to begin. So your 2 minutes starts now. We've hit the 1 minute mark. Keep writing and keep thinking. All right, down in 3 and 2 and 1. All right. So as you all were constructing your list of being checked, I also created a list of my own. And let's compare. Let's see how your list matches with mine. So here are some examples of being checked. Homework is checked. Dress code is checked. Student behavior is checked. You're checked at security entrance at airports, at the movie theaters, at concerts. You're also checked during sport events and games. Let's define checks and balances. So based on the examples listed and those you produced, what does it mean to be checked? So think for a moment, and actually, if you have a parent there or a sibling there, turn and talk and ask them and share with them what does it mean to be checked. Take about 30 seconds to do this. So what does it mean to be checked? Possible answers are to be stopped, put in your place, or evaluated. So when I was younger and I didn't do my homework, or I didn't do the dishes, or I didn't wash the car or cut the grass, I would be checked. So my mom would put me in my place. So that's an example of being checked, okay? So here's a definition of the word check. So there are four listed. So the first one says to stop or arrest the motion of suddenly or forcibly. Two, to restrain, hold in restraint or control. Three, to investigate or verify as to correctness. Or four, to make a sudden stop or pause. So based on our conversation, write down what you think is the best definition of the word check. I'm going to give you 1 minute to do that. And your 1 minute starts right now. You have about 10 seconds. All right, and pencils down. Let's continue. So today we will learn about the system of checks and balances and explore how it is reflected in the United States Constitution. So we're going to take a look at excerpts from the US Constitution that are examples of checks and balances. And as we read the quotes, we're going to determine which branches are involved and which branch is checking the other branch. I want to do this in a read aloud, think aloud type fashion. So you can see my thinking and how I process the information and how you should process it as well. Are you with me? Well, let's go. So here's our very first quote from the US Constitution. When the President of the United States is impeached, the Chief Justice shall preside. So impeach means to actually bring charges against related to official duties. So in this particular case, the president, I'm thinking back to a previous lesson. The president is a part of the executive branch. And the Chief Justice, I remember we learned about that. The Chief Justice. Oh, Chief Justice, that person is a part of the Supreme Court, the judicial branch. So the two branches that are involved are the executive branch and the judicial branch. So which branch is checking the other? So in this case, it is the judicial branch, the Chief Justice who's presiding over the veto, or not the veto, but over the impeachment. He's checking or she's checking the executive branch, the president that's being impeached. Let's take a look at another. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall be presented to the President of the United States for approval. So go ahead and take a few moments to take a look at this. And then I'm going to come back and share my thinking and to see if we're on the same page. All right. Let's take a look. So we have the House of Representatives and the Senate. They legislate, they make laws. So guess what? They're part of the legislative branch. And again, we see the president again. And again, he or she is part of the executive branch. So we have our two branches of government that's involved, the legislative branch and the executive branch. So who's checking who? In this case, it's the executive branch who is checking the legislative branch. Let's keep going. This is pretty fun. If a bill is vetoed by the president, it shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and House of Representatives. So veto means to reject a proposed bill or law. Only the president has veto power. So in this case, again, we see the president once more, and of course, he or she is part of the executive branch. And then we have the Senate and House of Representatives. Thinking back to the previous few quotes, we know that the Senate and the House are all part of the legislative branch. So we have our two branches, legislative and executive. But who's checking who? In this case, the legislative branch is checking the executive branch. Our next one is the judicial power shall extend to all cases arising under the Constitution, the laws of the United States, and treaties made. So I see judicial. So I know for a fact that judicial is part of the judicial branch. And then we see the laws of the United States and treaties. So laws and treaties. Laws. Oh, okay. So that's the legislative branch. The laws are made by the House and the Senate. So we have our two branches once again. We have our judicial branch and we have our legislative branch. But again, who's checking who? So in this case, the judicial branch is checking the legislative branch. The president shall have the power to appoint judges of the Supreme Court. So here we go again. The president is part of what branch, everybody? The executive branch. And then we have the Supreme Court, the top court in the land. Courts, judges, again, that is the judicial branch. So we have our two branches of government, the executive branch and the judicial branch. In this case, who's checking who? Oh, the executive branch is checking the judicial branch. Now we have another. The president shall have the power, with the consent of the Senate, to make treaties. In this case, we have the president, and that is part of the executive branch. And then we have the Senate, and that is a part of the legislative branch. Again, we have our two branches, executive and legislative. So who's checking who? With the advice and consent of the Senate. The legislative branch is checking the executive branch. That was pretty simple. So now, let's do a quick review of the checks and balances of each branch and how they check the other branches. So let's begin with the executive branch. So the executive branch, which is our president, he or she checks Congress by vetoing bills, recommending appointments, and negotiating foreign treaties. How they check the judiciary is by appointing federal judges and grant pardons. The judicial branch, which is our Supreme Court and all other courts, this is how they actually check the executive branch or the president. They can declare executive actions unconstitutional, and this is how they check Congress. They can declare laws unconstitutional. That means it goes against the Constitution, which is our law of the land. And then finally, we have our legislative branch. And they check the judicial branch by impeaching judges, approve appointments of federal judges, and proposing constitutional amendments. And then they check the president, the executive branch, by passing laws. They override a presidential veto. They can confirm executive appointments. they can ratify treaties, and they can impeach and remove a president. And remember, the House brings charges against the president. They impeach the president if he or she commits a crime or violates the Constitution. And then the Senate votes to remove the president. They find the president either guilty or not guilty. So let's take a look at checks and balances in the real world. So for each scenario, determine the branch or branches of government that can check or limit the action taken by the third branch that's described in that particular scenario, and include the power that will be used to check that branch. So let's begin. So the Supreme Court has ruled that a law passed by Congress and signed by the president that allowed everyone a free college education is unconstitutional. The law is no longer in effect. What can be done? So in this case, the branch that can check the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court, is Congress. And what power can they actually yield or impose to check the Supreme Court? They can propose an amendment to the Constitution. All right. So that was an example of what we're going to do. So let's proceed. So here's our first scenario. President I Am Rotten has stolen $1 million of taxpayers' money. What can be done? So, what branch will check this president? The executive branch. So let's take a look at this and see who's going to check the executive branch. This president, I Am Rotten. So the branch is going to be Congress, the legislative branch. And how are they going to check him? What power are they going to use? Oh, they can impeach and remove the president from office for this particular crime. So again, the House impeaches the president, brings charges against him or her, and the Senate votes to remove the president or not to remove the president. Let's take a look at another scenario. The president has vetoed or rejected a law that would help protect the environment for no other reason than he just didn't like the law. What can be done? What branch can check this guy? Oh, Congress can check this president, but how? Congress can pass laws over president's veto. And again, that takes a 2/3 majority. Now, what I want you all to do is create your own scenario. So now you create your own scenario of checks and balances using the must-haves listed below. Those must-haves are the scenario includes 2 branches of government, and the last one is one branch needs to check the other. I want to give you 5 minutes to create your scenario, and I'll let you know when to begin. Go ahead and begin now. All right, all right, all right. So it's been 5 minutes, and I know that you all have created some awesome and amazing scenarios. If you're not finished, that's okay. You can take more time to actually get them done. I would love to see them, and I hope that I have a chance to see them one day soon. If you can take a picture of them and you can send it to your teacher, or you can save it and hand it in once we're able to go back. So again, I know your scenarios are pretty awesome. Well, let's revisit our learning targets for them today, okay? So, can you explain how checks and balances work in real life? I hope so. And also, can you explain how the US Constitution reflects checks and balances? I'm pretty sure that you can. So, again, thank you for your time. And I enjoyed coming to you today and teach you all about checks and balances. Have a great one, you cool cats and kittens.